This really made me sad. This is really awful. So in Memphis, there's a young man, Tyre Nichols, who was beaten to death by the police. Okay, and it was caught on tape. I think two of the police had their body cameras on, but it was also caught from a CCTV. I couldn't watch it. I'm sorry. Like I read what happened, and I'm gonna read to you what happened. It's too much for me. I can't watch it, and this time it's too much. And he was beaten so badly, his family couldn't recognize him. He was taken to hospital. He died 3 days later, and now it's caused an uproar. You have people all over the United States protesting, and there are several points I wanted to go through with you, but let me just give you the background. So Nichols is he was a 29-year-old black motorist, because he was in his car when they pulled him over, right? So he was pulled over on January 7th. Okay, so this is already a couple of weeks ago, for what the police claimed was reckless driving. There's no evidence. I've seen literally zero evidence of reckless driving. They claimed this in the report. It didn't happen. After attempting to flee on foot, he was aggressively beaten by police. 3 days later, he died in hospital. So he's a father. He had a 4-year-old son. He's a skateboarder, a nature photographer. He comes from California, from Sacramento. And he had just moved recently to Memphis, right? And he worked with FedEx. The police said on January 8th that he was taken into custody after a traffic stop that involved 2 confrontations with officers. You know, when they say confrontations, they make it sound like there was a fight. This was not a fight. They beat him to death. He didn't fight with anyone. They beat him to death. During the initial confrontation, Tyre Nichols fled the scene of the traffic stop. Following the arrest, he was taken to hospital in critical condition, and he died, like I said, 3 days later, January 10th. And they say he complained of shortness of breath. I think this is another lie that they put in the police report, because it's not in the video, and he's just not speaking. His family said that the police beat him so severely he was unrecognizable. In the videos, the police are seen dragging Nichols from his car and shouting profanities throughout the confrontation. An officer tries to deploy a taser at Nichols and then begins to chase him on foot. And Nichols says, "I'm just trying to get home." Later, officers are seen repeatedly kicking, punching, and using a baton to strike Nichols as he lies on the ground. At one point, he's heard yelling, "Mom." Lawyers say that this happened within 100 yards of the family's home. Ben Crump, who's the family attorney, compared the footage to the 91 Los Angeles police beating of Rodney King, another black motorist. So, of course, I'm sure many of you know Rodney King. That caused the LA riots, and it's again, I'm not going to play the video for you, because it's really too much. If you want to go, they don't even let me play them. I when last year and the year before, when George Floyd, Jacob Blake, I played all of those, and they always tried to censor the video on YouTube. So it's really bad. These are the police who killed him. So these are 5 Memphis police officers, right? And they were fired. And here you can see that they work in the Scorpion unit. So Scorpion was a street crimes operation to restore peace in our in our neighborhoods. So this unit was disbanded. It was a 50-person team, and they after this they completely disbanded it. And the 5 officers, here are their names that I've highlighted. They were fired, then taken into custody. They all face charges of second-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping, official misconduct, and official oppression. 4 of the 5 posted bail and were released from custody by Friday morning. Their lawyers said that they will plead not guilty. So I couldn't help but notice the debate around the race, because a lot of people saying, well, they're black, right? So they are black police and they killed a black man. So how does this relate to the conversation about Black Lives Matter and reforming the police or abolishing the police? And this is a very important point. I think that some people are being very disingenuous, because they're saying that, well, because the cops who killed him were black, this means that there was no racism involved. I don't know how you come to that conclusion, because listen, when you work in an institution like that, where they're profiling black men, young black men, and they have a bias against them, even if you're black, you're wearing the same uniform, and you can internalize these biases. I'm just going to play you this clip. I think that Mehdi Hassan did a great job on this, and listen to what he had to say.
Two, data shows us that black people in the US are approximately 3 times more likely to be killed by police in comparison to their white counterparts. And number 3, one study in 2020 even found that being killed by police is now the 6th leading cause of death for young black men living in America, just after cancer. It's not about individual cops. It's about the police, about police departments that have a problem with institutional racism in this country. Which isn't surprising given the history of the police in this country, which goes all the way back to the early 18th century slave patrols, as multiple scholars and historians have repeatedly pointed out. Look, if police departments are targeting black communities and you are part of the police, you are going to be targeting black communities, regardless of your own skin color. The issue here, as plenty of people have pointed out, is not black versus white, it's blue versus the rest of us. Which is why this whole reform nonsense from Democrats is so tiring and so dishonest. You can't reform this stuff with body cameras or diversifying the police, as we just saw in Memphis. That doesn't solve the problem either. Now, Democrats, of course, want to run away from talk of abolishing the police or even defunding the police. That's way too radical, way too out there. But consider this. The Memphis Police Department's response to all this controversy and camera footage on Saturday was to announce that it was disbanding the specialized police unit whose officers inflicted that brutal assault on Tyre Nichols, the so-called Scorpion Unit. Yeah, they defunded and abolished it.
So there's some very, very good points to be made here, because, you know, this idea that, okay, well, because they're black, they don't, they don't embody or represent any sort of institutional racism or bias against black communities. I mean, that's ridiculous. You know, I can give you some historical examples if you like. If you go back and look at, World War II, you had a British division inside the SS, a British division of the SS. There weren't too many, and I think it was a couple dozen soldiers. It still existed. You had a Muslim division in the SS. You even had the French collaborating, Pétain and the Vichy, openly collaborating, happily collaborating with the Nazis. You can even find a few Jews who collaborated with the Nazis, right? So you can always find people who you would think they shouldn't be working with, this entity, and yet they are. So what these are just a few examples. So why is it so surprising that these police over here don't represent and don't internalize this bias against black communities? You don't know that, and there are tons of historical examples where you have minorities who are working with an entity or a power that actually has a lot against them, and yet they're still there doing it. So there's a lot of historical precedent for this, and I'm going to read you a quote from Tyre Nichols' mother. She said, "We're not worried about the race of the police officer. We're worried about the conduct of the police officers." And I think this is the most important point, because actually it's kind of ironic, because the fact that they're black kind of further proves the point that there's a big problem with police in America. They're excessively violent. I don't know if this is most of them, but it's too much of them, right? Like even one of these incidents, whether it's George Floyd or Tyre Nichols, is too much. This is fucking disgusting. Like, I don't know how you can justify this, and try to change the subject and it's not it shouldn't happen. If they're purple or they're green or black or white is really irrelevant, because they are police. They are abusing their authority and their role as a public servant to kill people, in such a brutal, disgusting way. This is horrific. This is horrific. When you see this behavior, I'm struggling to understand what's the difference between a criminal and the police. Because if you don't have the badge and you behave like that, I don't know what you would get. Depends on the country, but you probably go to jail for a quarter century for brutally murdering someone like that. So just because they have a badge, they can get away with it. It's really disgusting. This is so excessive, so disproportionate, so unnecessary. This guy did nothing. He literally did fucking nothing. They say, well, he ran away. Yeah, because they were tasing him and they were beating him up and they were like holding his hands and then giving him orders that he physically couldn't even comply with. Like bullies. So I don't care that he ran away. That's not an excuse to murder someone because they ran away while you're trying to arrest them. I'm sorry, but there are tons of people who run away or resist arrest. You don't murder someone for resisting arrest. It's not, executing someone or beating them to death is not a response to, oh, you ran away. That's ridiculous. That's obscene. Who the fuck believes that? How is that civilized? I mean, in this case, they beat him to death. In other cases, they just shoot someone for no reason. There's no training, there's no humanity, I don't know what to say. There's something very, very wrong here, and I'm not saying it's something that only happens in America, but if you look at in the UK, the police don't have guns there, and that doesn't mean there's no police brutality, because there is, and that doesn't mean there is no racism, because there is, but the fact that you don't have a gun, you can't just go around shooting people because they ran away or they didn't listen to you the first time you said something, right? They're forced to treat the public in a different way and handle situations in a different way, even dangerous ones. And I don't see that at all here, because it's like, okay, whatever reason, we're just going to put out a gun and shoot you. And in this case, they pepper sprayed him, they tased him, and then they beat him to death, literally beat him to death. And you guys remember George Floyd, he choked him to death he put a knee on his neck. I mean, this is just barbaric. This is so unnecessary. I'm really disgusted by this. I want to show you also here this tweet. All 5 officers who murdered Tyre Nichols are currently out on bond, right? So out on bail. While in New York, a cash poor, legally innocent person who commits a far less severe bail-eligible offense is locked up on Rikers Island until their trial, which could take years. This is not public safety. This is a really good point. Because if, you have people who are being sent to jail who are not convicted of a crime, they're poor. They just don't have money. And they can't post bail, or they couldn't pay whatever fine, and they are just stuck in jail. So that's not justice. That's not public safety. It's just making money for the prison industrial complex. That's really what it's about. The more cells that you can fill, the more you're going to line the pockets of the people who own the prisons and who run the services for the prisons. So it's a disgusting money-making scheme, and the fact that you can behave like some kind of barbarian, like these police did, and beat someone to death, and then you get bail posted while other people are just like rotting away on Rikers Island for doing nothing even comparable. I mean, that's disgusting. That is really disgusting. This is someone on Twitter who was in the Air Force. She was a ranger, also in a National Park Service, and I wanted to show you her thread. So she said that she said, "I have been taught to yell, 'Stop resisting' and 'drop your weapon' after firing a gun." She's talking about police training, right? She was taught to yell, "Stop resisting and drop your weapon" after firing a gun because bystanders will remember you said it, and their memory will automatically reverse the order of the events to make it make sense. Their testimony will support yours because of this, right? So you understand what she's saying? She's saying that she was taught to yell these phrases after shooting someone so that the witnesses in the street, they remember this and try to make it the officers or the police look good, even though they probably, didn't have a good reason to shoot anyone. She says, "I've been told to loosen up and have fun. Why are you so serious when doing a shoot or don't shoot scenario training?" She continues, "I have been told that de-escalation techniques will get me and other officers killed. And as a smaller LEO, I was justified escalating my use of force faster than my colleagues because I was always in danger, so I should use it. I've been told my only job is to go home at night." You see, I think this is a very, very bad thing that, they basically tell them, well, if you feel, a microcosm of danger, you're allowed to just execute someone. This is ridiculous. I'm sorry, but, how do you think the police in England are running this country without guns? If they can do it, you can do it too, right? maybe learn to speak with people in a better way, or, stop barking orders at them and learn to fucking, serve people instead of waving a gun in their face. I don't know. Maybe try that. Again, I'm not saying that England is like some role model or something, but it's a fact that the police do not have guns there, most of them, and they are able to get by. So what is your excuse? There is no excuse. So she continues, I've been told all of these things in formal, controlled, and regulated police academies. I have gone through 3 police academies. I have heard some of these things more than once. When I questioned these things in my 3rd academy and stated that they were inconsistent with the ethics of policing, I was kicked out of the academy on my last day. I had completed and excelled at all the graded tasks, but was told you are not what we want in our force. Now, here's another point I wanted to raise with you. I don't know if this is 100% relevant, but when George Floyd was killed, and in his case, this putting the knee on the neck, we all knew what that looked like. That looked like how the Israelis treat the Palestinians, the knee on the neck. And you can go on Google and find a million pictures of the same thing. And what was the connection? It was that, you have the Israelis who receive American police and train them. So you get an idea where, they're picking this stuff up from each other. So the Memphis police, which is, the police who killed Tyre Nichols, remember that the police department of Memphis, Tennessee, is among the departments that have sent delegates to Israel. Okay, so the director of the Memphis Police Department between 2004 and 2011, Larry Goldwyn, he attended a training in Israel as a delegate of the Homeland Security International Conference in 2010. Then he told ABC 24 News about his trip that, he would use his training to bring Israeli techniques back home to implement in the Memphis Police Department. We're going to try to incorporate some things here. We're doing a lot of it, but there's still some other things we can do technology-wise. I picked up some very good information. Now, look, you can, again, make of this what you will, but I think it's always good to point this out, that American police are training with the Israelis, because you can see there's a lot of parallels between how Israelis are treating Palestinians and how black African Americans are being treated by police in the United States. A lot of parallels. They're different struggles, but they have a lot of points in common. You can't deny that. And I wanted to say one more thing about these 5 police here that killed Tyre Nichols. Don't you get the impression they were charged a lot faster than anyone, like in any of these cases? Because I know the George Floyd police, Chauvin, he got convicted and it went to trial and everything. But don't you get the feeling that they didn't waste any time? I don't know. I'm not saying it's necessarily a race thing, but I feel like just generally speaking, they were way faster in getting these guys fired, charged, and that's it. Usually what happens is they say, oh, you're on administrative leave, which is like a paid vacation, right? That's what happens. They get administrative leave. These guys did not get that. They were fired and charged with, 2nd-degree murder. So make of that what you will, right? Make of that what you will. I'll just show you this clip. This is from Tyre Nichols' father, and he mentions a sixth policeman, the one who was tasing his son in the video. And listen to what he has to say here.
There was a white officer that was tasing my son. Yep. And we don't understand how come his name was not put out there or mentioned in this whole fiasco.
The media's not talking about it either. It's very
odd.
odd.
I think that there should be quite a few additional charges.
You understood there's another officer, and I think he got administrative leave, right? Which I was just mentioning. So no charges. And has not been fired, but basically, paid vacation. In any case, this is a very tragic case, very horrific, very disgusting, very, gut-wrenching. It's so, I'm shocked at this lack of humanity. It's so unnecessary, There is literally no excuse for any of this, none whatsoever, none. This is barbarism, what they did to him. It's revolting. I read to you what happened. If you have a strong stomach, watch the video, because I don't think words can really encapsulate what happened. It's so really, really just awful, really awful. And I have the feeling this is just going to keep happening. Every couple of months or years, they keep killing someone on camera and nothing changes. This is not the way. This is not the way.